So, Jim, trivia question. Have you ever been in jail?
I have, Gerhard.
I have a confession to make. Me too.
I know you have.
Right.
You went with me.
Right.
He obviously took some of the orange with him when he came out.
Right. Orange is the new black. And he is an orange tie. So why do we talk about this? I've met Jim many years ago. And when I heard his story, I was so impressed with his mission to help society and build a company at the same time. And he has, and we went to last October to Perryville Prison, a women's prison in Arizona that has an inmate population of about 3,200 people. And he has been able to tease out the most talented women in that prison and taught them how to sell. And making telemarketing calls out of prison. They're all dressed in orange jumpsuits. And very, very smart women. I've interviewed a number of them. One sticks out. She's a biologist and had a very good job. And she went to a wedding, drank a little too much and drove and killed somebody and got 8 years. And but what Jim's company has done is create an environment within an environment in the prison where they had a sense of normalcy, they had a sense of achievement, and they were motivated, they learned something, and over the years, the people once they got out of prison, it's a strange word for me to pronounce, the recidivism rate, which is the reincarceration rate, of those women is 7% compared to 70% of the other prisoner. So I want you to give Jim credit for that.
Thank you, Gerhard.
So we are in a room with a lot of latest sales executives, and I want to hear your credentials about selling. How did you learn how to sell?
Well, back in the day, I started working for IBM in New York City. But prior to that, my first sales experience was I had just gotten an MBA. I decided that the only company I wanted to work for was IBM. I figured out how to make a connection through the former vice chairman of the board to the senior vice president of global sales for IBM. And little did I know, I didn't know the level of this guy. He was the 5th ranking person in IBM at the time. He invited me up to Armonk to meet him. I walk in his office, it's a huge, huge office. And he spent 90 minutes talking to me about what it's like to work for IBM and what it's like to do global. And he recommended that I start with IBM in the US, and in particular, I then went and got a job selling in New York City. So that's kind of where I started off.
Didn't people misuse the acronym IBM at that time and say, it's a big mother?
No, it's I've been moved, Gerhard.
I've been moved, okay. So what did you learn from the culture of IBM as you absorbed it, and then how did you benefit from that in your career?
So that's a great question. So when I came out smart-ass MBA, capable of doing anything that I thought I could do, I went to IBM training school. And back then, the training school was actually 5 different modules, and it took a year to get there. So when we're talking, it's very interesting to talk about sales enablement in this group, and you think of what it took to get from ground zero through all the IBM training to the sales school and graduate. And a lot of people would fall out in the process because it was really that hard. What I learned, though, from that was that they took a range of different types of people from different walks of life, people with different degrees, and they trained them on technology, and they trained them on business organization, trained them on finance, and finally trained them on how to break down a company in manufacturing and sell to that company. And what I learned is that it didn't matter whether you had a fine arts degree, whether you have an MBA from Stanford or Harvard, you have the same, IBM would put you through the same paces with the same challenges in the classes. And at the end of the day, when a person came out, they were ready to sell to very, very elite executives in large and smaller companies.
So tell us about Televerde.
So the Televerde story is an interesting one because I was kind of between careers when I started it, and this is my favorite story to tell. When I didn't start the company, it started in August of '95. When I showed up, there were 5 part-time callers, 2 part-time partners, a part-time supervisor, a 486 PC, and no paying customers. And I said, wow, this looks like a really great idea. Fast forward through a lot of interesting conversations with a lot of different clients over many, many years, and the model is exactly what I had hoped it would be. But the difficulty in getting there was gaining acceptance in the community at large. You know, I have to go to people and say, we go through the whole sales pitch, we get to the end of the sales pitch, and I say, oh, by the way, I need your social security number, your date of birth, and your driver's license. And they go, what? You must have a lot of security in your business. And generally speaking, I got 3 different responses. One was nothing. One was, wow, that's really cool, man. And the other is, well, maybe I need to check with my procurement to see if this is going to be okay. So we went through kind of this whole track for many, many years and have developed friends in all parts of the tech world. And those friends have kind of carried us forward. And I think when we get into part of the conversation here, there's a huge, you can imagine the kind of trust we've developed with our clients, having those people call on the top companies in their portfolio, they call on the top prospects in their portfolio, and they speak in the language of the business, the owner of the business unit or the CEO of the company. They're able to communicate with an acumen that is absolutely unmatched.
So let's add some pictures to that. Can we run the quick video, please?
I thought I knew where my life was going at one point in time. I was in art school and things took a left turn. I ended up making some bad choices and I really lost myself. I actually ended up spending 4 years in prison. When I was in prison, my father got sick and I realized that time's precious and I'm gonna make the most of it. Sales has given me an opportunity to recreate my identity. It's really helped me rebuild my life, and Televerde was my opportunity.
People make mistakes, and when I joined Televerde in 1995, I felt that this was an opportunity to do something very different, to not only do a business focused on marketing and sales, but do a business that would actually give back to the community. We employ women who are incarcerated and not only help them enable our customers to be successful in the market, but help them return to the real world and support their families. The national average for the return to prison is 68%. The Televerde number is 6.1%, and that's over 23 years.
It's the hope and the actual belief that what they're doing today can lead to a meaningful and rewarding career doing something that they really love. We literally have people in every single department at every level of the organization who started with us on the inside.
I never saw myself continuing in sales originally, even when I first started, but I've fallen in love. It's so much more than just getting a check signed. It's really about engaging and being creative in how you engage and building relationships with people. I'm amazed at the transformation that I've taken as part of this career. Today I see myself with worth. I know that I'm more than my mistakes. I'm more than a number. My name means something. It holds integrity to myself, to my friendships, to my customers, and to my colleagues.
Right. There are a couple of things that jump into my mind when I listen to this video. One is relationships. And, obviously those people had made mistakes in their relationships with society. And now you hire them to develop relationships with customers. How do you teach them? How do you get them out? Like she said, I'm more than my mistakes, which is a big realization. That's almost like not defining yourself based on what you did, but who you truly are. And that is the individual that you're hiring and that you're teaching. So how do you teach them how to develop better relationships with clients?
Great question. So the challenge with the ladies is their self-esteem is just crippled. And so we have to teach them their own self-worth. And what I learned very early on was that when we do training programs, and we do a ton of training, we do more training than anybody else in any company. About 20% of their working hours is training. And the purpose behind that is we want to stack the deck. We want the people who can speak to your prospects, your customers in the language of the business. And that's not easy for somebody who has been in business for many, many years. It's very difficult to call on a specific line of business and talk to somebody about the things that are most important to them. But what we teach is it's about the dialogue. It's not about getting, it's about giving. It's about not about when we're doing our programs, it's a lot about nurturing and being able to bring things to the table, being able to bring thought leadership pieces to the table that people can talk about and kick around. We have numerous stories where with major clients, the people on the other side didn't even want to deal with their rep. They wanted to deal with our person. But we couldn't get them out, so they had to deal with the rep.
Right. Well, what comes to my mind is that you help those women shift their mindset from, minus 40 degrees to plus 100%. And I've seen those women, and I have talked to them, and I have been really impressed with the fact that people can shift their mindset. And that mindset shift also comes with a tremendous shift in business results. Correct me if my numbers are accurate, but I believe you had 150 people working for SAP, and they generated $1.2 billion worth of opportunities for SAP salespeople, making appointments, and then SAP converting that to about $160 million in new sales last year. Is that correct?
That's pretty accurate.
Right.
So along the lines of that, a lot of these people, so we have layers, and we start off with kind of a lead development layer, and then we have an SDR kind of layer, and then there's what we call an inside marketing rep layer that goes out to the inside sales layer. And the purpose behind that is they perform different functions at the top of the funnel to the bottom of the pipeline. And what we do is we train people to be able to hand it like a baton, be able to hand it off to the right person. And the consequences is things are moving through at the pace that they should be moving through. Nothing gets thrown to the side. And the credibility that passes from one person to the next. There's a lot of standardization in our model. There's a lot of consistency in terms of how people do the things that they do, and a huge amount of confidence from our clients' point of view about the things that we're doing for them. So it works extremely well all the way out to the actual close of the deal.
Let's talk about trust. The big element in sales, or maybe the most important, is trust and honesty. Obviously, society does not trust people who are sitting in a prison cell.
Well, as long as they're sitting in the prison cell.
Right. So if they're in the sales office, what takes place? Is that a value that your potential customers are going to question?
Sure. I mean, it's not natural to really kind of think in terms of, I'm going to hire this person and they're going to talk to my very best, my top clients and my top prospects about this amazing new technology that's doing all this amazing stuff for them, and then being able to nurture them and communicate on a consistent and long-term basis. That's kind of a big leap of faith until they visit us. And then I get choked up sometimes on this because it's so much fun to have people come in. Gerhard can validate that, because when you see it, I can't explain it. The video explains it a little bit, but when you see it in person, the women are amazing. And it's through lots of years and a huge legacy of transferring knowledge from generation to generation, where people are picking things up. And then those people are going on to become managers and salespeople for us. And so there's a whole legacy in our human capability that starts with, on the inside, with people having to recover their integrity, to recover their, to become trusted agents and trusted advisors for the people they work for. And they're extremely protective, way more protective than people on the outside would ever think of being. So I think from a trust point of view, and when we talk about human touch, and there's been a lot of conversations, interesting at this meeting, around both technology and human touch. And what we believe very firmly is that while salespeople and the whole sales engine is going to have to upgrade itself, where you have to be in the game is you have to be touching people at the right time with the right information. And people still trust working with humans more than they do with machines. So where we got to a point where we're sitting around and we talk about machine learning, and we talk about AI, and we talk about predictive and intent data, and all day long. And I know all the technologies that go along with it. I've studied every sales methodology under the sun. I've studied every sales development methodology under the sun. Being able to get somebody to understand how to build trust with another person by bringing the right kind of things to the table. Don't sell something to somebody who doesn't need the thing you're selling. That's the hardest thing for a seller to be able to do. So we might even eliminate people in the process with the idea that we're building trust over extended periods of time and not trying to jam something down somebody's throat to fulfill a quota.
Well, I think that your emotional response to your life's work is understandable, because you're doing something that nobody else would want to touch. But my interpretation is that you have so much faith in the human spirit, and also in the capacity for redemption and transformation through education. So you're empowering those women, you enable them, and you not only restore their self-esteem, but they also walk out of prison with a check. You know, some of those women leave with $25,000, $35,000 in their pocket.
Yeah, that's a little different experience than most people walking out of prison for sure. And they also walk out with a resume. So whereas the hardest part for most of these most people who get incarcerated, the hardest part is I get out, now I got to put my resume out with the top line is I spent the last X number of years in prison, and then I've got to explain that. What we can do is we build a resume based on what it is that we do, and then they explain that they were incarcerated. We try to employ every single one of the people that we can employ that has done a really good job for us, but that still leaves about 75% of the people who transition out that we need to help get jobs with in other places. One of the interesting things that we've had with SAP in particular is we've had people start off on the inside, move to the outside, working on SAP as an account, and then transition into their Tempe office. And they're among the top reps at SAP in a variety of different positions. So you see people who, when they came out of prison, their chances of getting a job were extremely low. Working in very elite jobs. We have pictures with Bill McDermott at his sales kickoff or his 100% club with his arms around the girls that used to work for us inside. It's kind of touching.
Aren't women more productive in prison than women who are not in that same environment when they have to take care of their children? They get sidetracked by a lot of other things, and
Well, that's a trick question, isn't it? So here's my experience. My experience is, and sorry guys, I have to say this, women are the hardest workers. I don't care whether they're in prison or out of prison, and are really dedicated in a different way than men are dedicated. Men are very, very competitive. It's not that the women aren't competitive, but it's almost like from empathy is such a big part of how they deal with each other. We see people help the people who can't do things quite as well as the other people. So all boats rise. And in our model, it's an immersion model. It's very similar to what I experienced at IBM. So people come to work for us in Perryville as an example, and it's a 24/7 process. So they're learning all the time, and they're not just learning kind of the concepts that we want to push their way. They're studying it. They're exchanging with, we might have 70 different clients at any given point in time. They learn everything about the technology and what's going on in the marketplace. They can speak IoT like it's nobody's business. So they're constantly being inundated and immersed in what we do and what our clients do. And it's just a very different experience. Women, I think, have in this type of environment would be a lot easier to work with. I haven't tested the men, but I'm pretty sure the men would be a lot more difficult to work with.
Right. Well, I was impressed by the prison library. There were books from Brian Tracy or Tom Hopkins or topics like solution selling, major account selling, which was very impressive. And I remember I sent you some books afterwards.
Yeah, you will? You got a package for me here?
No, I send you that.
Oh, you sent me the other package?
Yeah, the
Okay.
package.
Great.
But I'd be happy to send you more.
Michelle?
No, because there are a lot of authors that come and speak at Sales 3.0 conferences, and I always get books, and I'd be happy to send you the surplus for them.
We would very much appreciate any contribution. So we have many clients who run book clubs, and so they don't just come in and talk about their technology or talk about what they're trying to do as a company. They come in and they talk about some of the maybe leading edge literature, and so it's how much fun for me to see the CEO of a company come down and run a book club, because they believe, and I believe it's true too, that just the process of educating them and the process of reading, it makes our teams that much more effective.
Right. Speaking of reading, I was reading your blog in Selling Power, and you said, no jerks allowed. What did you mean by that?
So I think every company has kind of cultural imperatives, and in fact, it's taken me maybe a lifetime to kind of understand that completely. I have this, my people will tell me that I have this problem of I like everybody. And so I want to hire everybody, and not everybody's a good fit for your company or your culture. And so when I use the term no jerks allowed, Success Factors actually coined that many, many years ago. And I've thought about it for a lot of years. It's how you behave towards other people. Are you a team player? Are you not a team player? Are you really trying to help the other people on the team or not help the other people on the team? The ladies who work with us set the bar for that at such a high level.
Let's go back to training. You teach so many different skill sets, and not just you don't have a cookie cutter training factory there. So you teach different people different sets of skills. Why do you do that? What's the philosophy behind it?
So you want to constantly kind of raise the skill set and knowledge of the people, of the jobs around them, and the possible opportunities. So if you start off as in an appointment setting type role, like a lot of people might refer to what we do as appointment setting. Well, ultimately, yeah, that's what we do, but it's really not appointment setting. It's really about maintaining engagement with a target in your market in multiple different parts of their business, and then being able to bring that prospect or customer to the table with the right buying audience available. So training, we're constantly training on different solutions, different technologies, different business organizations. So any vertical market that you're interested in, and then any breakthroughs in technology that's different today than it was a week ago, which is generally what's happening today. Is every week something new is coming out. So they absorb it. You can lob it in there, and they eat it up, because in that environment, knowledge is the currency. And the more knowledge you gain, the richer you get, and they see that over extended periods of time.
What strikes me in your description is that when I compare this to the IBM of the 80s where you started, where the training was more focused on homogenizing salespeople, and you in today's environment, you individualize them more. And when I look at today's technology, robotics is all about homogenizing interactions and relationships. So explain your philosophy. Why is this better?
It's better because I have an opportunity to get away with it, and I think it works well. So we use predictive index as a tool to kind of look at personalities, and we have within the Orange Group a range of different personality types. What we've learned is that someone who would normally, you would not put them in a sales-related job, in that environment will learn the skills necessary to become good at that, because it allows them then to get the next job that they want to go into. And so you see people who, if you hired them on the outside, it would be very difficult to move them into those types of jobs. The other thing that I believe that's critically important is communication skills communication skills today are getting a little bit dicey with text and every other way of communicating. But I think teaching people how to actually talk to a person and listen to the person and be able to translate that person's needs into something, pretty critical skill for people to learn.
So when you, let's juxtapose the 80s with 2018.
Oh my goodness.
What did you see that has fundamentally changed, and what did not change? So
the biggest change, and this is a real surprise to everybody in this audience, is the buyer's journey is owned by the buyer for a much more extensive period of time. But one of the myths that I believe is true is nothing is sequential in the process of dealing with accounts. You know, it's all over the place. And if you start on that buyer's journey with the buyer at the point that the buyer's ready to put an RFP out, you're not going to win. You can't. You're the person who hasn't set the stage for being involved in that deal when the deal becomes real. And so I believe that having a person touching that buyer at all stages in the buyer's journey, and not an email, and not a Twitter or a social kind of interaction. I believe that the difference about humans has not changed in the last 20 or 30 years. It stays very much the same. People don't want to be annoyed by you when they've already made a decision to go do something. They're not going to bring you in if you're not there thinking about their business long before they make the decision.
So now a larger and simpler question about learning from mistakes. Everybody says, well, I'm learning from my mistakes. And what have you learned from your biggest mistakes? What was your biggest mistake ever?
Arrogance, maybe. Getting into a situation where I didn't feel like I was being treated necessarily fairly. And when fair is a four-letter word and you don't need fair. You need, things happen the way they happen, and you kind of need to go with the flow in whatever that situation is. I didn't want to bring up the name of the situation, but it's taken a lot of years to recover from taking the wrong position about a matter that was really a point in time and not something that I should have thought strategically about.
So when you think about the mistake, how did it affect your self-image?
Well, I'm kind of a typical male competitor. They were stupid. I was angry.
Okay.
Long time spent trying to thinking about what to do. The net of it is, having thought about that mistake for many, many years, I don't make that mistake twice.
Right. But there's also another word that can be a potential cure for that, and it may lead to a quicker recovery, which is forgiveness.
Wow, you want to go down that topic? I love that. Let's do it.
Because, well, thank you.
Well, my business model is all about forgiveness.
Exactly.
So
So why is it so easy for the business and so hard for you?
Because we're flawed. Humans are flawed. We do stupid things, and if you learn from the stupid things you do, you get to move on to the next level. I tell people all the time, I'd rather see you ask for forgiveness than ask for permission most of the time. When it's a really big issue, I'd rather talk about it up front. But
right.
I still feel like people ought to be able to make mistakes, because humans learn better from making mistakes than they do from the things they do right.
Right. Well, I think you've done an amazing job in helping so many lives. I mean, your belief in the human spirit is something that I totally admire in you. And your ability to pull it off and be patient enough and not get frustrated in the process, because other companies have tried your model and they all failed.
It tests, patience is one thing that tests really a lot. When we first started, we were viewed by everybody in the community as an alien. I mean, it was like, what are we doing here? Why are we here? I was regarded as an Aryan supremacist. There was something about that I was doing something to be there because of some other inclination, and that's taken years of learning. So we're this year we went to the Department of Corrections in Arizona with the director, and the director's kind of a typical J. Edgar Hoover type guy. He's a dark mahogany conference room. You walk in, it's dark. He's got his dark guys in his dark suit. And we said, we want to do a TEDx. And they kind of look at me and go, what? And so they asked for a proposal. We gave them a proposal, and in April, we're doing a TEDx in Perryville.
And you're looking for sponsors.
And I asked him to sponsor. I'm always looking for sponsors.
Exactly. I'm in.
Cool. Love it.
Any questions? We have room for 2 questions, quick. Do we have mics? Or just shout it out?
I'll shout it out.
Shout it out.
Thank you so much for having this presentation. It's heartwarming for sure. But what I wonder about is the next thing. The next thing for you, customer success. I didn't see any of that in your literature. You didn't talk about that. And what is happening in the industry, as I understand it, is that customer success professionals are beginning to partner with sales in some very important ways. And something you said about needing to always be in touch across the life cycle, well, you just stopped at the funnel. How about the rest of it?
He only gave me 30 minutes.
Oh, well,
I mean, I could go down every single path. I believe customer success is an extremely important part of the whole sales and marketing dynamics. So that's, I'm happy to talk about that anytime.
well, I think something that's really important is that voice of the customer be married with all the interactions that happen across the life cycle. And something that you said about talking to them all the time, that stimulated that question about the customer success piece.
No, I like the question.
How about the whole thing? Get your people doing it. Thank you.
Well, thanks. Thank you for asking the question, because we are in a subscription economy and customer success is more important now than ever before. Final question, anybody?
I heard you say that if you're at the RFP stage, you've lost the deal or something to that nature. Could you
I'm
repeat
sorry?
that? Didn't you say something about if you're at the RFP stage, you've lost the deal?
I'm not sure what he's saying. Can you understand what he's saying?
Yeah, I thought I heard you say earlier you were talking about the funnel, and you mentioned how if you're at the RFP stage, you've probably lost the deal.
So yes, I would say that if you're walking into a deal at the RFP stage, you're very unlikely to get the deal. Absolutely.
So you're saying you need to be the initiator.
You need to be. That's a conversation. If we're involved in any deal, and we're RFP'd all the time. They're very large transactions we're involved in. We're talking to people for sometimes years before their RFP comes out. So it's that constant touch on the market that you want to be a part of that is, I think, is immensely critical. So sorry I didn't understand the question, but I got it now.
I have one more idea I want to share with you. I think you should partner with a sales training company to bring sales students.
Is there any sales training company in here?
Yeah. They should bring their students to your training.
There's an idea. There's an idea.
They could learn a thing or two from those women about mindset, about self-esteem, about learning, about the fact that knowledge will transform into revenue forever, and their lives will be changed. Give them a big hand. Thank you. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you, guys.